What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. We have a new Netflix series to talk about today, but I could not do it by myself. I needed a special guest, and that is Rachel from Rachel's Reviews and the Hallmarkies podcast. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today. And are you excited about talking about Sweet Magnolias?
So excited to be talking about Sweet Magnolias. So excited to be on your channel. Thank you so much, Austin, for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome. I've been watching your stuff for so long, and I'm a big fan of what you do. So we thought this would be the perfect fit because of what you do in the podcast world. You talk a lot of Hallmark shows and movies, and a lot of people have been making that comparison with Sweet Magnolias. So what do you do on there, and how do you think it relates to what we're doing today?
Yeah, so what we do is we consider ourselves your spot to all things coverage of all things Christmas and all things rom-com.
Nice.
And so we cover all of the Hallmark movies, which pretty much every weekend during a normal year, we have 2 Hallmark movies every week, where there's a mystery on the Movies Mystery Show and then that channel, and then there's a regular rom-com. Of course, during this time, there's been a little bit of delays, and so we won't have and they've been acquiring movies and things like that, so it's going to be a little bit of a weird period, but nevertheless, that's basically what we do. Is we cover the movies and then we cover the shows. There's 9 of us total, and then we have guests, and we do weekly interviews every Monday. We'll have an interview with writers, actors, directors, just different people. Well, then we have bonus episodes. It's pretty much whatever we feel like talking about, especially in a quarantine. Like we covered High School Musical, the series, and that was fun. So we have those bonuses, but we just have a lot of fun. And Christmas is, of course, especially busy because at Christmas we cover all the Christmas content that we can. So yeah, we've covered a lot of Netflix Christmas. So yeah, it's very busy. There's also the television shows, which we do recaps of. One Calls the Heart just ended. So we have The Good Witch starting. There's been 3 episodes. And then we'll have hopefully When Hope Calls. Then there's the Chesapeake Shores, which we'll talk about in relation to Sweet Magnolias.
Yes. Well, we talked about that beforehand, and we talked about how Netflix is kind of getting into the Hallmark Lifetime game. We talked about similar producers and writers coming over to what I normally hit on, and that's the streaming shows and movies. And Sweet Magnolias, in my opinion, is the closest thing I had seen in terms of a trailer going in, not knowing anything. And of course, we'll hit on the source material, the fact that it is based on a book. But let's get right into this. So Sweet Magnolias centers on 3 South Carolina women, best friends since high school, as they shepherd each other through the complexities of romance, career, and family. Rachel, I want to start with you. Did you know anything about Sweet Magnolias going in, the source material, or what the show was going to be?
I only knew about it because our co-host Anne, she had been following this, and she sent me the information, and that it was the same writer who did Chesapeake Shores, and it's kind of a it's kind of a joke on the podcast that I really hate Chesapeake Shores. So just kind of teasing me about it, like this other show that's coming. And I think with Chesapeake Shores, it's not that I think actually the cast is very talented, and I like the idea. It's that I don't feel like the show fulfills that idea in a satisfying way. Okay. And so it's very frustrating. The things it chooses to spend its time on, and the characters and the writing is my big flaws, the writing. But and that's one thing I'm very proud about our podcast in general, is we are not gushers. Like we will say what we like, what we don't like. We're honest with our opinions, and I'm really proud of that.
No, that's exactly what you need to do, especially with, shows like this that have their audience for sure. But I think most people are willing to admit when we hit cliches, conventions, and flaws, something that I do believe Sweet Magnolias does on occasion. I really like this cast. I like our core 3 women here. I thought they were all really solid in their roles. Maddie, Helen, Dana, and where we go within the story is we kind of we spiral out of that and go into each individual relationship, the emotion that goes with that, and where this story goes to towards the end. And not to spoil anything, because this is non-spoiler review, but kind of setting up things to come in the future if they were to get that far. I was genuinely surprised with a couple of things we got from this show. Rachel, where were you in relation to how does this compare to a Hallmark show? Because I see the comparisons, I hear them. I need to know from the master, Rachel, how does this compare to a Hallmark show? And is it better, in your opinion, than some of the ones you have seen?
I mean, yeah, so it's obviously a little bit more PG-13 than your Hallmark content. You have relationships and you have, sensuality and things like that you're not going to have in a Hallmark show. But I also, I think that this show is probably a little more brave with its conflict than you get in Hallmark shows, because it doesn't have that same super conservative audience that they're worried about. So there's just some different character choices that the characters make and things like that you wouldn't have in a Hallmark show. So those are different. I mean, I think you actually would compare it a little bit more to something like Heart of Dixie. I don't know if you ever saw that show. Heart of Dixie, or maybe even a little bit Gilmore Girls, as far as the small town dynamic.
Gilmore Girls.
I loved the old show canceled too soon called Men in Trees with Anna Heche. I loved that show. And I think that's a little bit. It's also very similar to Virgin River, which is also on Netflix. Which maybe you and I can cover season 2. I'd say Virgin River goes darker than this show. It has darker elements as far as her troubled past and her life and things like that. But a similar kind of homespun feel to the show, and that's definitely was similar to in Hallmark shows too. Is that in the end it's about family, about friendship, about love. There's obviously a romantic comedy kind of element also to the shows, and kind of a dewy filming of it all, with a sort of romantic lighting and all of that you see. And I was a little bit surprised how much this show used the young cast. And that was nice to see. That's something you don't see in Hallmark typically, because their age demographic is older. But I'd say just sort of the old school, small town charm of it all is very Hallmarky, I would think.
Well, I mean, charming is one thing that, and you can use the word cheesy. I don't want to go, because that's too easy, but I feel like it really does. It embraces its tone at the beginning. And you mentioned the younger storyline with Ty and his baseball team and kind of the fallout with his mom and dad and trying to deal with that. And they do hit on about everything in this show. We have divorce. We have many, many relationships. We have the teenage struggle. We have what's going on in the kitchen with replacing her top chef, and a couple of those characters. I tend to enjoy things like those kinds of relationships and fallouts. And that was actually one of my favorite aspects of this show. But then at the end of the day, you get to the end of every episode, and we always get that conversation between the three. What happened today? What's going on in your life? And they're always there for each other. And I'll be honest, in the first couple of episodes, and sit back going, okay, I don't know if it's working all the way, but I feel for these characters more than I expected. And I'm a lot more on board with this story than maybe I anticipated going in. And I thought their dynamic carried the show. Now, I'll be honest with you. A couple of these performances, and you're going to get it with a show like this, did not work for me. The biggest one was Chris Klein.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I did not like his performance at all. I don't think it worked. A couple of the lines seemed a bit forced. And that dynamic, even though it was at the forefront, in my opinion, and Jamie Lynn Spears, by the way, where has she been? She's back. She's in this show. But that dynamic, there were a couple of performances within there. Rachel, what was your favorite performance in the show, and who kind of threw you off a little bit?
I agree with you about Chris Klein. I think because he's so much older than Jamie Lynn Spears. I mean, she was born in 91. He was born in 79. So he's way older than
Wow.
her. And I
Man.
think that I don't know, it's first of all, it hurts chemistry. You just have, and I know you're supposed to kind of look at him in an unfavorable way, but this is a character that two of our female characters have had, children with. Like we need some more redeeming.
Yeah, I agree with you. It kind of threw me off at times, and I liked what they tried to do with Jamie Lynn's character. The moment when they, not to give away too much, but they kind of kick her off the baseball field because she's distracting. Her presence is distracting Ty, and everything going on with that. A couple of the baseball thing. This is nitpicky, a bit unbelievable for me, but I liked how they tried to give her character purpose. I just don't know if it got all the way there.
Yeah.
And then I also thought Dana's character came off as a bit too abrasive in the first couple of episodes. Now, things tend to calm down in a show like this, and characters learn from their mistakes. But I found her character really likable until those moments when she came off as too much for me. And I'm just like, everyone is literally trying to help you. Like, Eric is such a wonderful character, in my opinion. I loved his
Yeah.
presence, but she was very abrasive. How did you feel about that storyline
I
and
mean,
everything going on in her kitchen?
so I love these three lead actors so
They're
much.
great.
It's like a
They are.
dream team to me because I love Brooke Elliott, and Drop Dead Diva is one of my like favorite shows ever. I
Okay.
love that show. And then I love Joanna Garcia and Reba. I was a huge Reba fan.
Yes.
And I love Heather Headley. I mean, if they were doing a musical episode of this show, it'll be amazing because Brooke Elliott's an incredible singer, and Heather Headley is one of the best singers
Wow.
alive
Okay.
today. And she's incredible. And if you ever listen to the Aida um, cast album, she won a Tony for playing Aida, and she's
Oh my goodness.
amazing. She's
Wow.
so good.
Okay.
And I love her in this. I think she is probably the best of the entire cast playing Helen. I think she is just really I loved how you got the moments of her just being giddy and being in love, and then moments of heartbreak and moments of dealing with the kids. And I don't know, I just thought she did a great job, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's no denying the chemistry between these three, and it really all rides on
Yeah.
their shoulders. I mean, if this doesn't work with their relationship, then all of these other stories, you're just not going to care. And I thought
Yeah.
all of them were spectacular. And Joanna Garcia, she has this likability. When she
Yeah.
smiles, I'm just like, oh, it's just like, she's so nice. And every time she was on screen specifically, I really enjoyed it. But Heather Headley, another one that, oh my goodness, I was rooting for her harder than I rooted for pretty much anyone all year. And that's the thing about this show is, in my opinion, it does kind of go off at points. It gets, a little bit too predictable, like all of the relationships and where people end up, the relationship, there's a baseball coach and something happens there. And I'm just like, I know where this is going. And sure enough, you're 3 episodes in, exactly where you expect. And I felt that way about a lot of them. So
Yeah. I would say it's somewhat by the numbers as far as the
yes,
plotting,
yes,
but I think that these three are so likable and they have such a great chemistry, and you feel like
yeah,
they're your friends. And I think that the reason why I wasn't super bothered by Brooke Elliott's performance of Dana at the beginning is just because I just love her so much. And I
yeah.
just, so I going in already loving her. And I felt like, why haven't we seen her in more stuff? Like, she was so great in Drop Dead Diva. And I also kind of, it's to a certain degree, her attitude kind of made sense because I think when you're a female that's being asked to lead,
Mhm.
oftentimes
She has a lot on her plate.
it's tough.
Yeah.
There's like a dynamic that the people you either expected to be a mother to people, or you're sort of, if you're not, you're either a softie or you're a jerk. And
Mm,
it's hard to be like the exact same behavior done by a male character wouldn't be viewed the same way as if as a female character. And so I think that maybe there's some of that insecurity in her performance. But yeah, I mean, she's definitely she's definitely has a character arc. Let's say that within
yeah.
this within the season. And I was kind of surprised that they brought in that the farmer guy and had her kind of going off, because I thought there
Yeah.
was something going on between Eric, like you said,
Mm.
and her, and there was something there. And so I was like, why are they bringing in this farmer? But who knows what they, I guess, have planned for season 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Eric was, being pushed in a certain direction, and then something else comes in, and just
Yeah.
what happened to that story? Like, I was rooting for that story, and that's the thing about this show is I found myself rooting for these different storylines, and I didn't really care about some of the flaws. And I will admit,
Yeah.
you've seen me, Rachel. I look into things. I get a bit too nitpicky at times, and I found myself doing that when the show would slow down, and maybe I'm not as into it. But then when you'd get back into the storylines that you cared about, it could also be just really good timing. Like I'm watching Kitchen Nightmares right now, and I'm like, oh, it's a female Chef Ramsay because she's the
Yeah.
leader of the kitchen and all this stuff. But I was really into a couple of these stories, and I found a couple of elements in there that really had me looking forward to season 2. Rachel, in your opinion,
Yeah.
where does this go? Not getting into too many specifics, but where does this go in terms of these characters? Are you looking forward to where certain arcs are going if you can steer around certain things?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can get to filming again, because that's the hard part when you have teenagers. They grow and
It's
change
true.
so fast,
Yeah.
and they're pretty integral part of the show, more than I thought they'd be, as far as their own story. Like
Yeah.
Annie's storyline in particular, I thought was really good, and also the younger Kyle. I liked his storyline
Yeah,
and
I
his
did
running
too.
away and his wanting to be an actor, and
Yeah.
I thought that was all really good. And that was the one nice moment I thought that Chris Klein character had, is when he got the Hamilton tickets for his son. Like that was a
Yes.
nice moment. I mean, and essentially these kinds of shows are basically sort of escapist entertainment.
Of
They're
course.
to remind you that life is wholesome and sweet, and there's love and friendship and small towns, and so if you just want to relax and enjoy something that's not going to have too much conflict, but enough that
Yeah.
hopefully it's not frustrating. I think they're going to probably have more conflict as far as Sweet Magnolias, the whole business, because it felt like
Yes.
that was a little easy.
Hmm.
They
I
just
agree.
start off this business, and it goes pretty well. I think maybe the parts that maybe rang a little false were sort of anything involving the stuck up towns person.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Yeah. Too
Um,
much for me. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty lame. You're like, okay, lady, like you calm down. Um, and I mean, Justin Bruning, I don't know how you say his lot, Bruning, I guess, but oh man, as the baseball, that was good. That was really good.
I agree.
And he was so sexy, how like confident he was,
Mhm.
and he was just knew exactly what he wanted. And that
Yeah.
was great. I thought he did a great job. And I thought they had pretty good chemistry, him and Joanna Garcia.
I do too. I agree. I think we talk about their relationship, and I was rooting for it. Now, the moment when the plumbing issue came about, and they were there, and I'm just like, I've seen this before. They're literally doing the thing that many other shows have done. And there was a point where Dana Sue passes out, and I noticed a couple of the characters were rushing towards her before she fell to the ground. So I'm like, there could have been
Oh,
times when the director could have stepped in and said, maybe we should do this again and not make it as predictable or unbelievable. But those moments aside, and I don't want to use the term guilty pleasure just because I didn't think I'd like it. I ended up liking it. But man, oh man, am I not like kind of rooting for these characters, invested and waiting to see what happens next? I mean, it's a show that I didn't expect to thoroughly enjoy like I did. But I can put some of these nitpicks aside and say that I had a good time. Rachel, if you had to score this thing, I do out of 10, or you can do out of 100. What would you give it?
I'd probably give it a 7.
Okay.
I think it was really entertaining. It was exactly, when you turn it on, it's exactly what you think it's going to be, and it's executed well. And I think that's the hardest thing to do in life, is to know exactly what you are and to execute it well.
I love a show and a movie that knows what they are,
Yeah,
that knows
exactly.
exactly what they're going to be from the beginning on, and never changes tone, and sticks to what they do best. So I'm close to you. I'm probably going to go a 65, a 6.5 out of 10. But who knows? This may grow on me, and I could go back and watch it because I ain't gonna lie to you. I told my wife, I'm like, listen, if you want to watch it with me, I don't care to go watch it. So, Rachel, thank you so much for being a part of this video today. Anything you need to plug and tell the people where they need to find you?
Well, if you watch Sweet Magnolias and you like it, make sure to check out the Hallmarkies podcast because we are going to be covering it. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're going to be covering it the first half of the season later this week. I think on Friday we'll release that, and then with Austin joining us, so excited. And then we'll cover the second half of the season. And we have just so much fun at Hallmarkies podcast covering all things rom-com and all things Christmas. So you don't want to miss it. And so check it out.
Full spoiler talk over there. I will be a part of that discussion. So if you guys enjoyed this show and you want to hear much more, please go over there. I'll leave a link in the description and the pinned comment. Rachel, once again, awesome. Great having you on this channel. She will come back. Thank you guys for watching, subscribing, liking this video, doing what you do. Leave your comments down below. Did you enjoy Sweet Magnolias on Netflix? Rachel and I will see you very soon.
Bye, everyone.